Well, hello there and welcome. You are listening to the Kindness Matters podcast, and I am your host, Mike Rathbun. What is this podcast all about? It's about kindness. It's a pushback against everything negative that we see in the news and on social media today, and it's a way to highlight people, organizations that are simply striving to make their little corner of the world a little better place. If you want to join in on the conversation, feel free. Go ahead and follow us on all of your social media feeds. We're on Facebook, Instagram, TikTok. We're even on LinkedIn under Mike Rathbun. Check us out. And in the meantime, so sit back, relax, enjoy, and we'll get into the Kindness Matters podcast. Hey, welcome everybody to the show. I am so happy that you could join us, and I am so grateful that you deemed this show important enough to spend 30 minutes or so of your time on. Thank you so much for that. Your generosity humbles me. Remember, if there's anything in this episode that you hear that uplifts you or inspires you or motivates you, please make sure to share that with your friends, your family, your coworkers, strangers on the street, whoever that might be. I would really appreciate it, and make sure to follow us on our socials too. The links will be in the show notes. As far as our show today goes, for some time now, the national conversation around immigration has centered around a lot of vague generalities, right? Phrases that start with those people or portray nearly anyone who comes across the border as breaking law are meant to paint a negative picture of certain individuals. And I don't want to get into the politics of immigration. I really don't. But I thought it would be helpful if we could add some context to the conversation, to look at the people who come to this country as individuals with different needs and different desires instead of as criminals, right? And in order to do that, I can think of absolutely nobody better than my guest today, Rosa Casquino. She's a Latinx licensed clinical social worker, trauma therapist, and speaker. She specializes in supporting survivors of childhood sexual abuse, narcissistic abuse, and complex trauma, with a focus on the Latinx and immigrant communities. She also provides psychological immigration evaluations and offers trainings and educational workshops for agencies and companies on trauma-informed and culturally responsive care. Welcome to the show, Rosa. Thanks for coming.
Thanks so much, Mike, for having me on. I appreciate you.
Did I mess up any of that?
Nope.
I really thought I was going to stumble over narcissistic.
Great.
Oh, awesome. So yeah, I mean, I get so tired of just. I should really stay off social media. Is what I should really be doing.
A lot of us should, right? I call it practicing good social media hygiene at times because it's so overwhelming.
Yep, absolutely, and it's especially bad because when you see like news stories where a judge strikes down one of the policies or one of the laws or one of the whatever it is, and you go into the comments in there, and it's always broke the law, illegal, blah 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 blah, and I really think I wish that everybody could see each of these people that comes here for who as human beings, right? Because we lose that. We lose that image of this isn't an illegal or this or that. It's a human being.
Yes. Yeah. And that's what I appreciate about this conversation, Mike, is that we're working on humanizing the immigration side of the immigration topic, right? The immigrant story, and bringing really awareness to the invisible trauma of migration, because that's what happens to a lot of the people that are coming over here. It is something that is a really difficult decision and experience for so many, as I've worked with uh, the immigrant community for over 10 years, and myself being an immigrant. It is a story. Everybody has their story, and they're not all joyful. And I think there's an image of the yellow brick road at times, but it is not the way it is. It
No,
isn't. Yeah.
no. I mean, I can't imagine picking up everything I own and putting it in a bag
Yeah.
and traveling hundreds, if not thousands, of miles through some really nasty areas
Yeah.
just for a shot at a
Yes.
better life. And
Yes.
that's really what's happening here, isn't it?
Yes, yes, it is. I came to the U.S. when I was two. I was born in Peru. My dad came first, and then once he got settled in, my mom came, and she still cries about the day that she left because she did not get a chance to say goodbye to her mother. That was the last time she ever saw her mom, and that was 40
Wow.
years ago. And to this day, she still cries about it. The fact that
Oh
she
my
had
God.
to leave her entire family and life behind to come here and give me and then my brother the opportunities for a life that wasn't bound to the earth at times, that it wasn't bound to poverty, that wasn't bound to some political unrest that could occur, that is occurring right now in so many different countries. And so I feel like I've owed it to her and to so many immigrant men and women to do the best that I can and to be able to support my community.
Is that what inspired you to get into this type of work?
Yes. So, I mean, growing up as an immigrant and undocumented immigrant, actually, up until the age of 18.
Oh
I
wow.
didn't, yeah, I was undocumented to that age. So I understand the struggles and the fears that can come up for so many of the individuals today. Right. So, as I mentioned, that was the process that I went through. And I not only did I grow up as an immigrant, but I also grew up in a violent household. I am a survivor of sexual trauma. And so all of that at a young age when I was a teenager made me want to get into the field of psychology. I wanted to be a child psychologist to help out kids that were going through what I was going through.
Wow, I can't even imagine.
Mhm.
Um, so what and I again I can't imagine a situation so bad that would require me to do that. You've dealt with a lot. Are the stories
Mhm.
all fairly similar?
Yes, there's stories of extreme poverty. There's stories of extreme abuse, of extreme loneliness and isolation. So many people want to be able to just feed their children, feed their siblings, because there's been so many people that I have worked with that themselves were the caregivers for their siblings at a really young age, because there was so much poverty in their household that they came over here. They left their young siblings, they left their family, they left their home just to be able to send money so that people can eat.
Yeah, yeah, that's crazy. And I mean, I keep going back to this because it just boggles my mind
Mhm.
that I mean, and really, when you're immigrating to another country,
Mhm.
you don't know if you'll even be allowed to enter,
Yeah.
but it's worth that trek.
Yes. Yes. It is. That's the thing. Like, it's so there isn't any hope at home for so many people. That's the thing. The hope is
Yeah,
gone, and the only thing that is sparking the hope is that hopefully in coming here that there is an opportunity for work. People don't come here expecting free things. I think that's a huge misconception that a lot of as we're talking about social media, that people are coming for the free healthcare, for free housing, for free this. That's a blatant lie, misconception, rhetoric, propaganda that is being spewed out there. That is not true at all.
wow.
Yeah.
And yes, thank you for bringing that up because I
Mhm.
did want to address that. And
Mhm.
I think there are so many misconceptions out
Yes.
there. that, you know, people just walk into this country and they could get free health care and they get a house and they get all this
Hmm.
stuff.
Hmm.
And that's
Yeah.
none of it's true.
No, absolutely not. I used to work in a domestic violence shelter, and we were actually one of the only shelter in LA County that that was able to bring in people that were undocumented into the shelter because that funding wasn't federal funding. It was a different type of funding that allowed us to do that. Now, if it had been federal funding, we wouldn't have been able to bring in anybody that was undocumented and help them and house them while they were escaping a very abusive relationship. Yeah, all
Oh
the
wow.
other
Okay.
shelters asked for a social security number or wanted them to be, citizens or residents in order to be able for them to go into those shelters and escape abuse.
For a domestic violence
For
shelter.
domestic violence shelter, yes, yes,
Wow.
yeah,
That's crazy.
yeah.
Was it the same for like a homeless shelter or do those, I mean,
We were home. Yeah, it was a homeless
okay.
domestic violence shelter. Yes, so that it was the same at that time. That was over 10 years ago. Yeah.
That's
Hmm.
crazy. So what does the typical undocumented um, immigrant, do they get any kind of assistance at all, or do they just
I mean,
making it on their own?
I guess it depends on the state, right? It's different
Sure.
states have different benefits and initiatives. And I know in the state of California, there was Medi-Cal that was being given now. That's, again, because of what's happening with the current administration. That's probably going to be taken, that will be taken away for, I believe, anybody over the age of 19. So at least kids will still, hopefully, still be receiving that, but not adults who may need it, may have health conditions that would really need their medication. So that's something that is really difficult. I mean, I'm blessed to live in the state of California where we can continue to support and provide services through grants and funding and donations to individuals that are struggling. And but no, other than that, I mean, people do not qualify unless you have a social security number. You do not qualify for Section 8 housing. You don't qualify for food stamps. You don't qualify for certain resources. That is completely untrue. That people are taking taxpayer money and using those resources without being here, with proper documentation. That's just
Right. God, that's just,
yeah, yeah,
it's so frustrating, isn't it?
yes.
Because, I mean, if you want to have an honest conversation about immigration, at least let's get the facts right.
Yes. I mean, and that's why I think it's so important to have this conversation. I appreciate the platform that you're creating right now, Mike, because there is such a misconception, and there's a misconception in a lot of white spaces. And so I want to be able to come on to these spaces and be able to put a face to the Latinx individual and say, this is what's actually happening and going on in our community.
Yeah. Well, and I appreciate you wanting to
Mhm.
have that conversation too.
Mhm.
Can you can you give us an example of? I mean, you don't have to use names or
Mhm.
anything like
Mhm.
that. Just
Mhm.
of a typical person that. Well, I mean, I suppose you could use your mom,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
or just somebody who's
Yeah.
fleeing something
Mhm.
and what they went through just to get here.
Oh, I mean, I've heard so many stories personally within my own community and in the individuals that I work with. I mean, people have survived like near death experiences crossing over in the desert. People have survived near drowning, and when they're crossing over through water, people have survived human trafficking, rape. Um, being held prisoners and being sexually assaulted and then trafficked for labor because they were brought over and they had to pay back their debt. These are the atrocities that people are facing, and particularly women that are coming over here to be able to provide for their parents, for their siblings, for any young little kids that they may have left behind. That's what they're
Yeah,
going through, and they still make it, and they still find work, and they still work hard. They work 40 plus hours to be able to send money home for their families to survive.
that's and I defy
Mhm.
any American citizen right now
Mhm.
to put in that kind of work.
Yeah.
You can look all over. And yes, I know there are
Mhm.
people out there
Mhm.
that are struggling
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they're working 60 hours a week.
Yes.
can't afford their insurance,
Mm-mm.
but they get
Yes.
insurance.
Yes.
Um, so I mean, I'm not saying that, you know, some people aren't struggling.
Mm-hmm.
They are. But
Yes.
talk to me. Do you know about the Darien Gap?
Mm-mm. Tell me about it.
Okay, never mind. It's part of the. It's part of the trail that comes. Oh shoot!
Mm.
I thought maybe you would have known about it. Never
Mm-mm.
mind. Pull out my Gilda Radner. Never mind. So, but yeah, I mean, we're talking about how far is it from, say, Peru to the border?
And and the board. I could tell you the flight from LAX to Peru is 8 hours straight, almost 9 hours straight. A flight,
That's a direct flight.
a direct flight, almost 9 hours. Yeah,
Wow. So we're
yeah.
talking months.
Months possibly. It depends, right? I think my mom was able to come to San Diego, and then from San Diego she crossed over by land and water. She tells me the story of when she was crossing water, that I was 2 years old and she was carrying me, and it was nighttime and she was terrified, and people were asking her if she wanted help like carrying me, and she was so afraid of letting me go because she was so afraid that she would never see me again. And
Right,
so
and
just
that was
you're
probably a
thinking,
very real fear.
yeah, it was. This was 40 years ago. She was a 20-something-year-old young woman alone in a country with language she didn't speak, with a young child in fear.
Yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's crazy. So, but I so appreciate that you are a clinical social worker, right? So you're
Yes.
okay. And when we say that you do psychological immigration evaluations, what
Yes.
does that entail?
And so, psychological immigration evaluations is a thorough psychological assessment of an individual that is either petitioning to remain in the US or they're petitioning for a family member. So, depending on the type of petition. And what I have to illustrate in that is the emotional, psychological, probably financial impact that if they left, that it would have either on the US citizen here, or if they left, the type of psychological impact that they could face if they were to be deported. So, for example, there are so many different qualifications. Like U visa is if somebody's been a victim of a crime here in the United States by a U.S. citizen, and they help law enforcement be able to like navigate and report that and help them detain the person, then they could qualify based on that. But there would have to be a significant emotional
Oh
and
wow.
psychological impact to the crime that they were part of or witnessed.
Okay. All
Mm-hmm.
right.
Mm-hmm.
All right.
Yeah.
Um. Yeah. And I can't. Yeah. I mean, how is it a reasonable? Do most people? There I go generalizing again. I'm not going to do that. As a general rule,
Mm-hmm.
do most people think that they will be able to just live here until they can become citizens, or they just no? There's
No,
no hope there.
the thing is there is this. I don't know. I think a lot of like U.S. citizens or people or think that there is a pathway to citizenship. There isn't a pathway to citizenship. The United States has not created that. The ways to do it is through asylum, through like refugee, through like if you I guess get married, and through some of these petitions that people don't know, but they have to have gone through something difficult. They have to have gone through a violent crime, human trafficking, seeking like a political refugee in order
Right.
to try
They
to
have to
apply.
provide evidence that if they were
Yes,
sent back, they would be
yes,
most likely
yes,
killed.
absolutely, yes. And so they have to be under an extreme like hardship or or psychological impact in order to even petition, and that doesn't mean that they're going to get approved.
Right, right,
Yeah.
right.
Hmm.
So they just live. They just live here,
Yeah.
and
Yeah.
they don't collect any kind of social services, really.
Nope. They pay
Um,
taxes and they don't. Yeah, they pay taxes. Okay.
Talk to me about how that works. I mean, because I
Yes. Yes.
so an undocumented worker can get A social security number?
No, it's a TIN number or ENI
Oh,
number, and I forgot what it's called. It's TIN or ENI, I forgot. And it's
temporary
basically a
identification
number.
number?
Yeah, it's student identification number.
Taxpayer
So
identification number.
there you go. There you go, TIN, taxpayer identification number. Perfect. Yes. And with that, they can file taxes, so they can pay taxes, right? That's to kind of build some history for themselves and say, I'm here and I'm working and I want to pay my taxes.
But they will
Yeah.
never see a dime in
Oh,
Social Security
nope.
or any of it,
Not at all. Not
ever.
at all. Not at all. I mean, it'll help them eventually, like say, okay, if they want to buy a house or if they want to be able to do something like with a U.S. citizen, right? Then they can
Right.
provide like tax, like years of taxes
Look, I'm
to be
paying
able to do that.
taxes.
Yes,
Yeah.
yeah, but they will not. They will not collect the benefits of that.
And I think that's another one of those misconceptions that
Yes.
they're a drain on our economy
Mm-hmm.
when in fact they're actually contributing to it.
Yes, absolutely. They contribute so much and take so little. And
Yeah.
there's so many jobs that immigrants do that U.S. citizens will never do.
I would never do.
Who wants to be
I,
in the fields in the heat,
right?
working, at the wee hours of the morning and in
Or in a meat
agriculture
packing
or in
plant,
the meatpacking plant and freezing in Nebraska,
southern Minnesota.
Minnesota, exactly. People don't want to do those jobs.
No, no.
Yeah.
Yeah, I laugh when they talk about you always hear it. They're taking our
Yes.
jobs.
Yes.
Bullshit. Oh, you would never do that job.
Never know.
Don't give me that crap.
It is BS, yes.
Um, so so I have a memory.
Mm-hmm.
Um, my dad worked for an airline in the '80s, and
Mm-hmm.
he worked in San Diego, and I
Oh.
went out to visit him,
Mm-hmm.
and we were going to go to Tijuana, right?
Okay.
But we were driving, and we hit a stoplight
Mm-hmm.
by a like a lumber yard, and there were
Oh,
all
okay.
these guys standing around at
Yeah.
the corner. I'm like, what's going on over there? Day laborers. That was the
Mm-hmm.
first time I'd ever seen anything like that.
Yeah. Oh, really? Okay.
Yeah, well,
Yeah.
I had a
Yeah.
sheltered life, okay? I had a sheltered white boy life. What can I say? I grew up in Montana.
You hustle, right? That's what we do as immigrants. Nobody's going to give us a handout. We have
Right.
we have to work for it.
And you're not asking for a handout
Oh,
either.
no,
You want to
absolutely
work
not.
for it.
Absolutely. And that's what I said earlier. I feel that there's a commitment that I've made to myself because of the sacrifices that my parents made coming here. Not just my parents, but so many immigrants, so many people that are parents and grandparents, generations of individuals that have left their home life to come here. And I have a duty to do the best that I can and in order to honor that sacrifice that they have
Yeah.
made.
Yeah, you're standing on their shoulders, basically.
Hmm. Yeah, yeah, I'm here because of
Um,
them.
yeah, and I mean, it's so fortunate
Hmm.
that, when you think back 40 years ago, because your mom was so incredibly brave,
Yeah,
I get to talk to you about this.
absolutely. No, I'm truly, truly blessed of her sacrifice and my.
Now, is your mom still down in the San Diego area?
Oh no, she's in my kitchen, probably cooking.
Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Although it's probably lunch where you are.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah. She helps me a lot. She's been
That's
a
so
big
cool.
blessing. Hmm.
It's and I think family means more to immigrant communities.
Yes,
It's
because
huge.
we have to rally around each other. People have left their homes, their communities, generations, and they come here and reconnect. Immigrants will find each other all the time. Yeah, They will
That's
connect.
cool.
Yes, they will know each other's accents, and they will connect, and they will bond, and and then bond over food again.
Uh, that's way cool.
Yeah,
I I also like to bond over food.
right.
Um, next time you have um, no, it's just it's such a heartbreaking thing for me to see us having these conversations,
Mhm.
but completely dismissing or leaving out the humanity. When we talk
Yeah.
about immigrants, we're talking about human beings who, I mean, at the bare minimum,
Mhm.
are deserving of compassion and empathy
Yes.
and basic human kindness, right?
Yes. Absolutely. And I mean, I know that the system is broken. We do not have in the US. We do not have a good immigration system, and and I recognize that. But there also
Yeah.
hasn't been any movement forward to create a good immigration system.
It's like they just leave it for every 4 years
Yes,
for election time so they can bitch about it.
absolutely. Yes,
I am such a potty mouth today.
it's a heavy subject. It's a
You
subject with a lot of
know,
emotion.
it is. It really is.
Mhm.
We just, I, our country needs to have an honest conversation
Yeah.
without the generalizations, without the misinformation,
Yes.
um, and say, what's fair to everybody,
Hmm.
right? Because
Yeah.
I mean, you're talking about, and it's going to affect if we were to deport every undocumented person
Hmm.
today, just
Hmm.
some
Hmm.
magic
Yeah.
spell or what have you. I think Americans would be absolutely shocked
Oh. Yeah.
at the breakdown, basically the breakdown of society.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I mean, and when we look at immigrants, we're looking at people from so many countries, not just like
Right. This
Latinx
is not
countries.
just
Yes, I mean, we're looking at people from Southeast Asia. We're looking at people from even Canada,
yeah,
from so many different countries, and I think that's what has made the U.S. so beautiful, our diversity, and there's such a huge like movement away from that, and how we should look like as a country. But this is what we have looked like this for such a long time, like diverse people being able to come together and have conversations like you and I are having right now. What would the world be like if we weren't able to come together like this?
yeah. I can remember growing up,
Hmm.
and it was a source of pride to say that America is a melting pot.
Hmm.
You know,
Hmm.
you said that proudly,
Yes. Yeah.
and I don't think
Yes.
people still feel that way. Some of them,
Yeah, yeah, I know. I used to be so proud to be here and be a U.S. citizen, and even I just recently traveled. I just came back from Japan, and when people asked where I was from, I was like Los Angeles, California. I didn't even want to say the United States because, or from Peru. I'm originally from Peru.
Peru. I'm from Peru.
Yes,
Your English is
yeah.
very good.
Right. Yeah, because I was concerned about
Yeah,
maybe the stereotype or the backlash that may come if people, when people found out I was from the U.S.
that's a valid concern.
Hmm.
Yeah, yeah. Well, Rosa, I really, really, really appreciate
Hmm.
your point of view and your perspective on this. And maybe if we have more conversations like this, some people wake up and start
Hmm.
demanding that we have an honest conversation
Yes.
about immigrants, regardless of where they come from.
Yeah.
And I mean, I'm hopeful. How about that?
Yes. I mean, you're right. I think instead of asking like why are they here? Why are they coming? And I think it's important to start asking like what have they survived to get here? Right, because it's not the problem to solve, right? It's people with stories that are really worth hearing, with experiences that can contribute so much to our current society. So it's like, stories of struggle and also triumph and being.
Yeah. Yeah, absolutely. I think some people just think that somebody in Argentina wakes up one. Okay, that might be it. Maybe not Argentina, but somebody from South America just wakes up one day and goes, "I'm going to break into the U.S."
Yeah. Oh, yeah.
It's just it doesn't happen that way, and that's not what's going on. And
Yeah.
yeah, yeah, we need to hear these stories, and we need to have honest conversations and not misinformation
Yes.
or any of that stuff.
Yeah. Yeah.
Thank you so much for your time today, Rosa. I really, really, really appreciate it.
Thank you so much, Mike. Thank you for creating this platform.
You're very welcome. Let's talk again.
Yes.
We'll do
Yes.
it.
Absolutely.
Okay. Take care and we'll talk soon.
Thank you so much, Mike.
I want to thank you for taking this time to listen to this episode today with my guest, Rosa Aquino. I hope you're able to take something positive from the time you spent with us. Maybe you'll be inspired. Maybe you'll be motivated to have those conversations that need to be had. Maybe you'll be moved. If you experienced any of those positive feelings, please consider sharing this podcast with your friends and family. I am always striving to offer you a better podcast, so give me some feedback. Let me know how you think you're doing. Email me. Leave me a message on my socials. It would mean the world. And also make sure to feel free to follow us on our social media platforms like Facebook, Instagram, LinkedIn, and TikTok. All of those links are in the show notes. This podcast is part of the Mayday Media Network. If you have an idea for a podcast and need some production assistance, or if you have a podcast and you're looking for a supportive network to join, check out MaydayMediaNetwork.com, and also check out the many different shows like Afrocentric, Spoil My Movie, Generation Mixtape, In a Pickle Radio Show, Wake Up and Dream with D. Anthony Palin, Stacks O'Pax, and the Time Pals. We will be back again next week with a new episode, and we would be honored if you would join us. You've been listening to the Kindness Matters podcast. I'm your host, Mike Rathbun. Have a fantastic week.